Of another print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Elizabeth Ortel, and for the next hour I'll be reading from the Wednesday, May 20th edition of the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. No injuries in Oakfield fire. Resident discovered kitchen fire upon returning from work by Saul Hauser. No one was injured in a 3-alarm fire at a village apartment house Tuesday morning. Firefighters responded to a report of a fire at 20 Maple Avenue at about 11:45 a.m. Tuesday. Upon arriving, firefighters found no one home and heavy smoke and fire coming from the area of the kitchen in the rear of the building. Crews quickly contained the fire, and the most severe damage was limited to the kitchen, particularly in the area surrounding the sink, Oakfield Fire Chief Chad Williams said Tuesday. There's a lot of smoke damage in there, a little bit of water damage, obviously, from the crews putting the fire out, but other than that, the rest of the structure just has smoke damage. The origin of the fire was not immediately clear Tuesday, but it is not believed to be suspicious in nature. The first report of the fire came from an occupant of the house who spotted smoke upon returning from a walk. Crews from Alabama, East Pembroke, Batavia, and Elba assisted Oakfield firefighters in addition to Mercy EMS. It was unclear whether either of the 2 apartments in the building would be habitable following the fire. Estes drops out of New York 24 congressional race by Ken Sturtz, Oswego. Kenneth Estes Jr., the Western New York farmer who sought to transcend partisan politics with an independent bid focused on agricultural and kitchen table issues, is leaving the race for the 24th Congressional District. Estes, 58, of Caledonia, announced his decision Tuesday in a video posted on Facebook in which he was seated in his barn and roosters and horses could be heard in the background. Republican and Democratic congressional candidates need to collect 1,250 petition signatures to get on the ballot, but independent candidates must collect 3,500 signatures in a 42-day window. Tuesday was the first day for independents to turn in their petitions. We didn't get there, so today I'm suspending my campaign for Congress in New York 24, Estes said. Collecting petition signatures is tedious work without the support of a political party, whose members collect signatures for candidates. The task is even more challenging in the rural 24th District, which includes Oswego County and stretches 200 miles around Lake Ontario from Watertown to Lockport. Estes said he had a small but enthusiastic group of supporters who helped him collect petitions, for which he is grateful. But he said New York has one of the steepest ballot access requirements in the country for an independent. It wasn't for lack of want, it wasn't for lack of people. We ran out of runway, we did not run out of resolve. Estes had hoped to challenge Republican Claudia Tenney, Republican Cleveland, in November. Tenney, 65, is running for a 5th term in Congress. Estes is the 3rd candidate to drop out of the race. Democrat Stephen Holden, who ran against Tenney in 2022, left the race in November. John McDermott, a Republican, tried to run against Tenney in a Republican primary, but failed to collect enough petition signatures to get on the ballot and dropped out in April. Democrats Diana Kastenbaum of Batavia and Alyssa Ellman of Lockport will face off in a primary in June, and 2 other candidates, Todd Sloan and Tony McCullough, recently filed paperwork to run as independents. When Estes entered the race in January, he said he had long wanted to explore running for elected office, But the catalyst behind his decision was Tenney's introducing a bill to make President Donald Trump's birthday a national holiday. And I asked myself the question, how is that helping me and my community advance and become better, Estes said earlier this year. How is that helping the agricultural community that makes up a 14-county district, and how could I do better? Estes, a political newcomer, was a Republican most of his life, but he registered as an independent in 2025. He said he believed the two-party system had become broken, which influenced his decision to run as an independent. For too long, Estes said, the voices of hard-working individuals and families had been drowned out by partisan rhetoric and the extremes of politics. He believed he could take a different approach that wasn't left or right, but instead focused on a middle ground. A seventh-generation farmer whose family has been in Livingston County since 1832, Estes and his wife Carrie live on a 165-acre farm that his grandfather bought in 1950. The couple breeds and trains sport horses, as well as raising chickens for the eggs. Estes is also an agricultural program manager with Cornell Cooperative Extension in Livingston County, working on consumer horticulture, hobby farming or homesteading, and commercial farming. His campaign focused heavily on agricultural issues. The 24th District is the largest agricultural district in the Northeast, and Estes said he wanted to prioritize sustainable growth, investment in local economies, and the protection of the region's beautiful landscapes. He highlighted 4 pillars: health and well-being, housing, a sustainable food system, and a clean environment, that he said are most important to the 24th District and the nation. Some Democrats privately worried that a former Republican running as an independent in the congressional race could siphon off some independent and Republican voters who are unhappy with Tenney, but unwilling to vote for a Democrat. Estes threw himself into the race. He maintained an active presence on social media, participated in forums with the other candidates, and hosted a series of town hall-style events in barns throughout the congressional district. He even held a drive-through petition signing event on his family's farm. But without a network of volunteers, he struggled to collect petitions. On Tuesday, Estes said that even though his campaign was ending, he planned to remain civically engaged and is already considering another congressional run. A campaign is a vehicle. It's not the work, and the work, every piece of the work keeps going, he said. Estes said he will continue his Conversations in a Barn listening tour as a standalone, nonpartisan community project, independent of his candidacy. He said he is also exploring the possibility of a Conversations in a Barn podcast as a way to extend the format beyond in-person gatherings. Conversations in a Barn was never a campaign gimmick, he said. It was the whole point, and we asked people what they actually needed instead of telling them what to think. Estes said he would continue to focus on agricultural education, protecting farmland, and helping farms stay viable, and supporting the next generation of farmers. He said that while he hasn't yet made a decision about running for Congress again, he would want to give himself more time to build a network of support from the ground up if he were to run again. It's not the morning I pictured when we started, but the listening, well, that continues, he said. The stewardship, that continues. The work continues, and the door is open to 2028. Another article on the Wednesday, May 20th issue of the Batavia Daily News: stream cutting generators from data center plan. Opponents had raised noise, fuel spill concerns by Saul Hauser. One controversial portion of Stream Data Center's proposed $19.5 billion Alabama data center complex is off the table, company officials say. The company has removed 6 2.5 megawatt diesel generators from its plans for the project at the Science and Technology Advanced Manufacturing Park, Stream Design Manager Combe Curran said in an Alabama Planning Board meeting Monday night. The generators, 2 for each of the 3 planned buildings, for a total of 1.5 megawatts, were a key point of contention for neighbors of the property and members of the Tonawanda Seneca Nation, whose Big Woods abuts the site of the proposed data center. While the facility has 2 separate connections to main power transmission lines intended to prevent outages in all but the most extreme conditions, Stream would have run the generators at least once annually for testing. An April 23rd sound study commissioned by Stream found that when the generators were running, noise levels would be roughly 75 decibels in the immediate vicinity, similar to a vacuum cleaner, falling in between 32 and 41 decibels in locations along the property line, similar to the hum of a refrigerator. Opponents also raised alarm about the amount of diesel fuel that would be stored on site to supply the generators, 9,500 gallons each, for a total of 57,000 gallons. Despite Stream's assurances that the fuel tanks would be double-walled with spill prevention covers and alarms, speakers at a previous hearing said a single spill would irreversibly damage sensitive wildlife habitats. Despite the large generator's elimination, Stream may still install a single 300 kilowatt generator at each building to power pumps for fire suppression, Curran said. He said that Stream hopes to eliminate those generators too, or to pursue an alternate fuel source such as propane, but that full removal would require approval from a fire marshal. The intention is to have no generators on the site. That is what we're designing and working towards, he told the Daily News after the meeting. It's a different electrical topology inside the building to tie together 2 redundant systems so that we have a dual source for the fire pumps that effectively comes from the substation. Separate lines, separate electrical switchboards, separate manholes, separate undergrounds. Everything is remote. They're effectively separated from the substation all the way until they arrive at the fire pump. So it gives that dual source, but it can sometimes be open to the interpretation of the fire marshal if that is an acceptable approach. Aside from the fire pump generators, Stream won't change or add any electrical infrastructure to account for the large generators' removal, Curran said. The generators were designed to power front office functions and allow staff time to properly shut down equipment, to guide the center through a blackout, a scenario Curran described as a black swan event, given the facility's dual direct connections to transmission lines. Under new plans, he said, Stream would solely use previously planned backup batteries, changing the facility's operating procedures to include evacuation of front office areas in the case of an outage. Curran said public backlash was a factor in eliminating the generators, and that the Alabama facility would be Stream's first without generators. It's a combination of public feedback, technicality, cost, operation, he said. We already have been running this building without significant generation. Usually, both lines of the building would be fully aligned with generators for backup power for all the IT systems, mechanical systems. We already never had that. This was only for safety. While the generators may be gone, environmental concerns remain regarding runoff and sound. Sound consultants hired by the town of Alabama and by the Genesee County Economic Development Center, which owns STAMP and is acting as lead agency on the stream project's environmental review, found inconsistencies in the noise analysis conducted by Stream's consultants and have requested revisions, town officials said Monday. And concerns about runoff and wetlands remain, particularly regarding vernal pools, which are temporary seasonal wetlands whose small size makes them a breeding ground for amphibians. Town consultant Drew Riley said Monday that an April ruling in Albany County Supreme Court, which overturned a 2022 State Department of Environmental Conservation definition of wetlands on the grounds that the DEC didn't follow the proper rulemaking process, means regulating vernal pools is likely off the table. The court's ruling returned the definition of wetlands to a 1975 definition, which included a minimum size of 12.4 acres. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. From a Section A, page 2 article, Quickly's Sells Batavia Location by Ben Beagle. Avon-based Quickly's has sold nearly a dozen of its convenience store locations, including stores in Batavia and the Livingston County hamlet of Dalton, to Mirabito Holdings Incorporated of Binghamton. A temporary Mirabito banner has replaced the Quickly's sign in Batavia. The sale also includes 6 locations in Monroe County and other stores in Lyons, Wayne County, North Tonawanda in Niagara County, and Watertown in Jefferson County, according to Rochester Business Journal, which first reported the deal on Monday. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. Neither Quickly's nor Mirabito Holdings responded to email requests for comments. Quickly's was founded in 1995 by the Bruckle family and opened its first store in Avon, Livingston County. The still family-owned company went through a period of expansion, more than doubling its stores between 2016 and 2024, when it grew to 29 locations across the region through acquisitions and new builds. The Batavia store opened 2022 when Quickly's transformed the former Bob Evans restaurant near the Thruway interchange on Oak Street in Batavia into a convenience store and gas station with a drive-through restaurant. Quickly's had acquired the Dalton store, a former mobile gas station with Dunkin' Donuts on Route 408 in 2021. In 2017, Quickly's built its first travel center in Avon. Based on listings on the Mirabito website, the company also acquired from Quickly's properties at 1311 Fairport Road, Parrington, 2590 Culver Road, and 2291 Hudson Avenue in Irondequoit, 575 North Winton Road in Rochester, 2061 Chili Avenue in Gates, 1722 Lake Road in Hamlin, and Lyons, according to the Rochester Business Journal report. Deeds from 2 transactions were filed with the Monroe County Clerk's Office on Friday. The Parrington store was sold for $2,938,705, while the Rochester location was sold for $1,341,220, reported Rochester Business Journal. As of Tuesday morning, documents related to the sale had not yet been filed at the Genesee County Clerk's Office. The Batavia Quicklies is on property that included the former Bob Evans restaurant. The property was acquired by 204 Oak Street, an affiliate of Quicklies, on August 30th, 2021, for $1.44 million. On July 5th, 2022, ownership transferred to PEM, which does business as Quicklies, and a mortgage was secured for $2,008,575, according to county records. As of 2024, the 1.391 acre property has been assessed value of $1.265 million, according to county records. The first Marabito convenience store opened in 1982 in Oxford, Shenango County, and was called Quickway Food. The company has since grown to 121 stores across the Northeast, including New York, Pennsylvania, and Vermont. In New York, the company has a large cluster of stores in central New York, the Mohawk Valley, and Southern Tier, especially along Interstate 81, according to the store locator on the company's website. The Quicklies purchases appear to represent an expansion into New York. Another story from the Section A, page 2, A Legacy of Generosity. May 13th proclaimed Teresa House Day in Geneseo. For 33 years, Teresa House has been a place of generosity for those in need of end-of-life care. Indeed, it is the generosity of donors, volunteers, and staff that makes Teresa House continue to offer its services. At a ribbon-cutting ceremony to celebrate the milestone hosted by the Livingston County Area Chamber of Commerce on May 13th, Teresa House Board President Stephanie Gehrig read aloud a proclamation from Geneseo Mayor Chris Ivers declaring May 13th as Teresa House Day in the village of Geneseo. Teresa House has provided compassionate end-of-life care, bringing comfort, dignity, and peace to residents and their loved ones, always at no cost to the families. Their work stands as a lasting testament to the power of kindness, compassion, and community, read the proclamation by Ivers. We're very grateful to the village and to Mayor Ivers for doing that for us, said Anna Campbell, Executive Director of Teresa House. We've been so grateful to have their support, and now to have a day to recognize Teresa House and all of the people who have helped us to be able to celebrate 33 years is really special, Campbell said. Teresa House is a nonprofit, 2-bed comfort care home adjacent to Highland Park in Geneseo. The house itself was originally purchased in 1989 by the village as a planned expansion of the park. But then a coalition of people from the village board, local churches, and the county came together to repurpose the house. There's only about 30 comfort care homes in New York State, and we're the only comfort care home in Livingston County, Campbell said. Admissions for the 2 beds at Teresa House are based on need and are not dependent on county of residence. In fact, the organization serves a 9-county region. It has provided care to more than 530 residents over the years, all by the contributions of volunteers and donors. But what Teresa House does cannot really be quantified. It is a place where people can face grim realities, but it doesn't have to be sad or lonely. It can be joyful, explained nursing supervisor Leah DeRitter. She calls it family-style end-of-life care. DeRitter, who is a registered nurse and who also has a bachelor's degree in social work, has been involved in end-of-life care for more than 35 years, working as a nurse and with one of Teresa House's partners, Livingston County Hospice. I just find this to be the most fulfilling work I could ever do. I learn constantly, Dorita said. You never quite feel confident of everything because there's always a new twist to a family dynamic, or to a resident's needs, or to my own coping with those changes in a person. Sometimes my emotions surprise me, but that's supposed to be how you learn, she said. Teresa House offers 24/7 coverage, utilizing 70 volunteers a week, usually two at a time, who cover 49 shifts. DeRitter trains the volunteers, tailoring the trainings to meet the needs of residents. We've had some unique cases where we've had to really ask our volunteers maybe to learn a new skill set or to push themselves a little bit. And it's amazing that we can, as a home, really rally around a resident and provide the training we need, Campbell said. And our volunteers always step up, said DeRitter. Volunteers can take on a number of different roles, from personal care to companionship, or any of the responsibilities of an in-home caregiver. Some of the volunteers are SUNY Geneseo students. We had 32, I think, student volunteers this year, 15 of whom are graduating this weekend. It's very exciting for them and bittersweet for us. Volunteers range from 17 to 90 years old. Some are retired, while some are in school or still working. We've got a really good core of people that want to do anything they can to make somebody's last days joyful. And I use the word joyful because we try to make sure that the people who come in here know that we're happy to be here and that we're happy to care for them and that we're lucky to be able to invite them into this home. Campbell, who is in her 4th year as executive director, did not know at first if the job was the right fit for her. She has a business degree and experience in fundraising and institutional advancement. But facing death alongside the residents as part of the job is not for everyone. Now she finds it fulfilling, she said. We deal with a lot of very challenging situations. Death is really scary. People have high emotions. People don't know what to expect. And I think it's been a beautiful thing to witness a family and a resident go through that experience and to really see firsthand the difference that we're able to make somebody comfortable, to make them calm, to honor whatever wishes they have. She told the story of one resident named Jay who needed help connecting his devices to the Wi-Fi, and she ended up helping him fill out a change of address form. On the form was a question about updating his voter registration. I asked him if he wanted to update his voter registration, and he just looked at me and it's like, "What are you talking about? I'm dying. I'm here to die." It was such a moment full of levity where we both were able to laugh. And once we had a moment to just breathe, I said, "I know, Jay. Do you want to talk about it?" And I just found that to be a moment I reflect on a lot because I think it's really cool that we can get to talk about the really tough stuff in a space that is very supportive and that we also get to do something about it. It's scary. It can be. I mean, we have yet to walk through it. So all we can do is bear witness to it, Campbell said. But there's so much that we can offer along the way. For more information about Teresa House or to donate or volunteer, visit www.teresa, Teresa house.org. From the Section A, page 4 of the Daily News of May 20th, "The Problem Isn't Masculinity, It's the Men Modeling It," by Claudia Santi Fernandez. From the White House to Harvard to Buckingham Palace, 2026 has become a master class in how men should not behave. Donald Trump tweeted in expletives on a religious holiday, threatening to decimate a whole civilization. Larry Summers, one of the world's most powerful academics, resigned in disgrace from Harvard. Before that, Prince Andrew was arrested. This year alone, Bill Gates, George Mitchell, and other prominent men have been exposed for inappropriate, abusive, or generally shameful behavior. In short, men aren't looking good right now, especially as role models for young men. Now, more than ever, we need good men to step up for our boys. Young men are in trouble. They are telling us that they feel more alone, depressed, and isolated than ever. They are not thriving in today's society. Their grades are worse than girls. They're less likely to graduate high school on time, and they're less likely to enroll in college. Most worrisome of all is the rise in male suicide. When boys grow up without experienced, grounded, consistent, accountable male guidance, we should not be surprised when concerning behavior becomes their norm. Research shows that trusted adult men, fathers, friends, teachers, community members, and others can make a difference. Decades of developmental science affirm that children, both boys and girls, benefit from the involvement of a warm, responsive father. A systematic review of 24 publications showed that father engagement reduced behavioral problems in boys and psychological problems in girls. Other studies show that boys with an engaged father were less likely to misuse substances and were better able to manage their stress well into adulthood. In fact, research group Child Trends argues that positive engagement with fathers is not just essential, it is critical for healthy development. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Fortunately for the 25% of U.S. children who don't live with their dads, these benefits are not limited to fathers. They also come from adult role models, especially men. Research shows that a strong safety net made up of many trusted adults, including men, can fill the gap. For instance, one study found that high school seniors who had a trusted relationship with a non-parental adult had better mental health a year later. Overall, children benefit from a safety net that extends beyond their households. Today, that safety net is provided mostly by women, from babysitters to teachers to school counselors. Their contributions are indispensable. But the imbalance points to a missed opportunity. Boys and young men need to see men in ordinary, everyday settings, embodying a healthier version of masculinity. What would that look like? It would mean modeling emotional intelligence, listening with attention, communicating with clarity, and managing anger without violence. It would mean demonstrating respect for women, for peers, for oneself, and valuing effort, responsibility, and care for others. Scholars of positive masculinity, like Matt Engler Carlson, PhD, director of the Center for Boys and Men, have long argued that these traits are not deviations from manhood, but its most positive expression. It would also mean changing how men engage with each other, especially younger men. According to a report by Next Gen Men, more than 4 out of 5 boys had someone they felt they could trust when they were having a tough time, but only 16% actually asked for help. The cultural expectation of self-reliance remains powerful. Adult men can begin to dismantle it by doing something simple and radical, asking directly and consistently, "Are you okay?" and offering help. Finally, it would require visibility. Cultural norms are shaped not only by private behavior, what is seen and acknowledged also. As Dr. Niobe Way, director of New York University's Human Connection Lab, notes, boy culture often rewards emotional suppression and dominance while sidelining vulnerability and empathy. Yet research on social behavior suggests that positive expressions, care, accountability, kindness, are contagious when made visible. For instance, when people are exposed to positive pro-social emotions in their social media feed, they tend to post more positively. Visibility becomes contagious. Men need to make their good behavior and compassion visible because young people are watching. In what many are calling the I don't remember how to pronounce this, Artemis, the second effect, the crew named their spacecraft Integrity and then lived it, modeling humility, connection, and trust as millions watched them make history. Their character mattered, according to Lawrence Kohlberg's development of moral thought. When young people see adults model integrity, like taking accountability after making a mistake, showing care and affection with friends and family, and challenging disrespect to others when it happens, they then develop their own internal standards. We need to do more of this. None of this ignores the reality that public trust in men has been shaken, often for good reason. Revelations of abuse and exploitation, from the hashtag #MeToo movement to the Epstein scandal, have forced a necessary reckoning. Some men may hesitate to step into mentoring roles out of fear or uncertainty, but retreat is not the answer. The need is too great. Any honest conversation about gender must also recognize that young people experience identity in diverse and complex ways. Even so, the behavior of men, how they wield power, express emotion, and treat others, continues to exert a profound influence on the social landscape. The question is not whether masculinity will shape our boys, but whether masculinity will be shaped by men willing to lead with character and integrity. In a time defined by the worst examples of male behavior, the most important act today may be for good men, there are many out there, to live in such a way that children never have to wonder what healthy masculinity looks like. This article was written by Claudia Santi F. Fernandez, Doctorate of Education, is an assistant clinical professor at the Yale Child Study Center. She is a Public Voices Fellow of the Op-Ed Project. Articles from Section A, page 6, the section called Nation World. 5 dead in mosque shooting. Teenage suspects died from self-inflicted wounds. 3 people were fatally shot at an Islamic center in Claremont neighborhood on Monday morning, and 2 teenage suspects were found dead of apparent self-inflicted gunshot wounds in a vehicle nearby, San Diego police said. The report of an active shooter at the Islamic Center of San Diego on Ekstrom Avenue came in around 11:40 a.m. Officers found 3 dead men in front of the center, one of whom was a security guard there. Their names have not been released. San Diego Police Chief Scott Wall told reporters at a briefing that the 2 alleged shooters were found dead inside a vehicle a short distance away from the mosque. The suspects, ages 17 and 19, apparently had killed themselves, Wall said. After leaving the center, Wall said the 2 shooters apparently had fired at a landscaper working in the area. That man was not injured. Officers responding to reports of that shooting found the vehicle with the dead teens inside. Wall called the attack every community's worst nightmare. The fatal shooting is being investigated as a hate crime, and the FBI is involved in the investigation. Because of the Islamic Center location, we are considering this a hate crime until it's not, Wall said. Wall said all the children who were attending the school at the site were safe. And I'll tell you what got to me. Watching the kids come running out, just thankful to be alive. Police established a reunification location at 4125 Hathaway Street. Wall said law enforcement officers from around the region rushed to the Claremont location after someone called 911 to report an active shooter at the Islamic Center. The first officers arrived within 4 minutes. After seeing the bodies of the 3 people in front of the building, the officers went into the mosque and the adjacent school. About the same time, police received calls from people hearing active gunfire a couple of blocks away. Officers responded to Salerno Street and found a landscaper who said he had been fired at but was uninjured. Officers were then called to Hatton Street, where they found a vehicle in the middle of the street with 2 bodies inside, dead from apparent self-inflicted gunshots. He said no officers fired their weapons during the incident. At an early afternoon news briefing, Wall said he didn't have any details to release about the circumstances that led to the shootings. He also expressed admiration for the response of his officers and those from other agencies, calling it the most dynamic and impressive response he'd seen in his career. From the Nation World section, NATO starting to consider Hormuz mission, by Andrea Pellasciano. NATO is discussing the possibility of helping ships pass through the blocked Strait of Hormuz if the waterway isn't reopened by early July, according to a senior official in the military alliance. The idea has support from several members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, but doesn't yet have the necessary unanimous support, said a diplomat from a NATO country. Both officials spoke on the condition of anonymity. Leaders from NATO countries will meet in Ankara July 7th and 8th. The political direction comes first, and then the formal planning happens after that, said Alexis Grinkiewicz, NATO's Supreme Allied Commander, Europe, when asked about the possibility at a Tuesday press conference. Am I thinking about it? Absolutely. Such a move would represent a shift in the military alliance's strategy toward the U.S.-Israeli war in Iraq. Thus far, allies have insisted they would only be involved in the strait once fighting has stopped and they can form a broad coalition that includes many non-NATO countries. But economic woes are deepening, with the strait's closure sending energy prices soaring and growth forecasts tumbling. It's unclear exactly how NATO countries could guarantee safe passage for commercial vessels through the strait. A recent U.S. attempt to do that was halted within days of being launched, despite Washington's considerable military capabilities. A spokesperson for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization didn't immediately reply to a request for comment. Iran initially blocked the Strait of Hormuz, which transits roughly a fifth of global oil and liquefied natural gas supplies, after the U.S. and Israel began bombing the country in late February. The passageway has since become a source of tension between the U.S. and its European allies in NATO, who refuse to heed President Donald Trump's demands that they help reopen the strait. Trump has repeatedly fumed about the reaction, and Washington recently announced it would withdraw 5,000 troops from Germany. The senior NATO official said that while some allies still oppose authorizing an alliance mission for the strait, they would rally around the idea if the blockage persists. The NATO diplomat said that several allies do support intervening to help reopen the strait, but cautioned that others are still reluctant to be dragged into the conflict. Some NATO members, like Spain, have been unequivocal in their opposition to the war. Madrid even barred the U.S. from using its airspace and bases to attack Iran. Most allies, however, have quietly granted access to their bases to provide logistical support. A coalition led by France and the UK is also developing a plan to help secure navigation in the Strait of Hormuz once the fighting abates. Some countries have even positioned assets in the area in preparation. That hasn't been enough to placate Trump, whose anger has been specifically targeted at Germany. So far, however, the U.S. has made no formal request for NATO involvement in the strait, Bloomberg previously reported. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Batavia Daily News on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. New nuke plant sought in Oswego County. New York nuclear operator will seek site approval. The owner of the 3 nuclear reactors at 9 Mile Point in Oswego County will use nearly $30 million in government grants to apply for an early site permit that could lead to development of 1 or more new nuclear plants at the site. The U.S. Department of Energy on Thursday awarded Constellation Energy Corporation $17.3 million to help pay for an early site permit application. The New York State Energy Research and Development Authority will contribute up to $12.5 million more to the effort. Constellation will use the money to apply for site approval that could be used to develop 1 or more advanced nuclear reactors at the site. Governor Kathy Hochul, who has sought to make New York a leader in nuclear power, cheered the announcement. Hochul aims to more than double the state's nuclear generating capacity from 3.4 gigawatts to 8.4 gigawatts. A centerpiece of my all-of-the-above approach to energy is developing cleaner, more reliable nuclear power, Hochul said in a prepared statement. We are making steady progress toward that goal, and this funding commitment moves us even closer. The DOE grant targets site preparation for the development of so-called Generation 3, or Gen 3, reactors, or small modular reactors, or SMRs. Gen 3 reactors, which can vary in size from less than 50 megawatts to more than 1,000 megawatts, have passive safety systems and other new technologies. SMR are typically no larger than 300 megawatts, although they can be designed to be chained together. Constellation's grant was among $94 million awarded by the Energy Department to 8 companies to support new nuclear development. An early site permit from the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission approves a site for future development of a nuclear power plant without specifying the design of the reactor. The permits are typically valid for 10 to 20 years, allowing the company to apply for a construction and operating permit any time during that period. The issuance of an early site permit resolves questions about the suitability of the site in terms of environmental impacts, seismic conditions, population density, and the emergency planning, among other site-specific issues. Those factors do not have to be reconsidered when the operator applies for a construction permit based on a specific plant design. leading to a shorter review period. The grants from DOE and NYSERDA, NYSERDA, will help pay for the expense of compiling the application. The NRC has 18 months to review the application after it is submitted. Constellation officials did not immediately indicate how soon they plan to apply. Being awarded this grant underscores New York's leadership in advancing affordable, zero-emissions energy, said Mark Rogers, a Constellation spokesman. We thank the DOE for the strong foundation it has built to support the next generation of nuclear innovation and applaud Governor Hochul's leadership and New York's ongoing support for nuclear energy. In the health and family section, ask the pediatrician what to know about Kratom, Kratom. You may have seen Kratom products at gas stations, vape shops, or online. Marketed as natural and often sold in forms such as powders, capsules, and gummies, Kratom, or it may be pronounced Kratom, is gaining popularity in the U.S. among teens. But while it comes from a plant, that doesn't make it safe. Kratom comes from the leaves of the Mitragina speciosa tree, native to Southeast Asia. Historically, it has been used in traditional medicines by brewing it in teas or chewing the leaves. Recently, though, Kratom has grown into a large-scale industry in the United States and is now mass-produced in a variety of forms. It is most commonly sold as powdered leaf-filled capsules or as a powder that is mixed into a drink. Newer Kratom products are now being sold as candy gummies in a variety of flavors. It is sometimes also called Biak or Biak Biak, herbal speedball, Kakuam, Ketum, Thang, or Thom. Kratom is often sold in gas stations and smoke and vape shops. Many states have taken steps to make Kratom illegal. Minors may still find it being sold in gas stations and smoke and vape shops. Teens may also purchase Kratom online, since there are few age restrictions to viewing and purchasing these products. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is concerned about it and continues to investigate its health effects. The FDA has banned its import into the United States, but did not have enough evidence to officially classify it as a controlled substance, so it can still be manufactured and sold in the U.S. At low doses, Kratom can make you feel like you have more energy and make you more alert, like a stimulant. It can cause a temporary feeling of happiness or euphoria, but it can also make your blood pressure very high and cause a dry mouth. At higher doses, Kratom reduces anxiety and causes sleepiness, the way strong pain drugs like opioid, heroin, or fentanyl do. In fact, like opioids, it can cause people to stop breathing at higher doses. It also can cause liver damage, hallucinations, and convulsions or seizures. It has caused or contributed to dozens of deaths in the U.S. in the past decade. Natural doses not always mean safe. Many naturally occurring substances like lead or cyanide can be toxic if consumed even in small amounts. Kratom is no different. It binds to the very same brain receptors that opioids, including heroin or fentanyl, do. So it can have similar dangerous effects. Because of this binding effect, kratom can be addictive. People who use it regularly for a while and then quit have reported withdrawal symptoms like those seen with opioids. It can lead to addiction, substance use disorder, but science does not yet show how much or how long it takes for this to happen. People who become addicted to it might start to feel sick if they suddenly stop taking it. Some signs of withdrawal might include nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, muscle joint aches, restlessness, runny nose, excessive yawning, and hot or cold flashes. There is no safe way to use it. Its products are not regulated and have more than 50 biologically active compounds in it. Some change the way your body handles other medications. That means it can interact with prescription drugs, causing potentially serious issues, and you can't know how strong or pure they are. Some have been contaminated with harmful bacteria like salmonella, which can cause serious illness. The FDA says it cannot be legally sold as a medicine, dietary supplement, or food additive in the U.S. Because of these risks, kratom use is never considered safe. If you suspect your child is using it, it is best to choose a time when you can have a calm discussion with them, focus on their safety, and explain that it can cause very serious health problems. Partnering with a pediatrician or therapist who specializes in substance abuse is a great next step. A pediatrician or a therapist who understands substance use can guide you and your child toward safe treatment and support. If you know someone who may be struggling with kratom addiction, it's important to remember that addiction is a treatable illness. Medications and counseling can help people recover. Call 988 to get local mental health and substance use resources. You can also search for treatment programs on findtreatment.gov. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Wednesday, May 20th issue of the Batavia Daily News. We read from the Batavia Daily News every Saturday at 9 a.m. Your reader has been Elizabeth Ortel. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have the East Aurora Advertiser. At 11 o'clock, we have the Niagara Gazette. And at noon, we have the Dunkirk Observer. Stay with us for these readings and more throughout the day. Radio Reading mails out a large print program schedule to our listeners every other month. If you have not received a Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service large print program schedule in the mail, please call us at 716-821-5555. We will make sure that you receive one every other month. A Braille version of the schedule is also available upon request. Our number again is 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which